already knew? Okay, bring it down anyways. Okay, you ready to start taping? Nobody's moving yet. Okay, sit down. We don't want to look fake. Okay. All right, readers. We need to come to a good stopping point. I've invited a couple people to come and share down at the sharing circle for closure today. Remember, our topic is synthesizing. If you read something new that added or changed something that you already knew about, I would want you to come down to the floor and share that topic with us. So let's go ahead and get moving to close up our independent reading for the day. And then that wouldn't be an option. Big circle, please. Big circle. Alright guys, we need a big circle. Madden, being in a school is not one of the options I've ever had. So, Marley, if you could scoot back a little bit. Okay. It's just mud from the shoes. We'll get over it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start. And the first person I'm going to ask, are you ready to share? Okay. Tell everybody what it is that happened.
I was reading a book called The Battle of Lexington and Concord, and I was reading the book called The British Plan, and I knew a little bit about it, and I learned that the General Thomas Gage was sent to Boston to become the governor of Massachusetts, and he also wanted to make the colonists obey the law, and spies warned Gage that the colonists were gathering weapons to fight the British, and it was like all secret, and I learned that.
So we knew a little bit about him trying to get not let the colonists collect weapons. But we were both like, oh, we didn't realize that this was all like a big secret. So we had to synthesize what we already knew to the new information that we learned. Presley, you're distracting our circle, so if you could sit, please, and listen to the people around you, I would appreciate that. Thank you. The other thing you learned, remember you told me, I knew that they were called redcoats, but I didn't know that they were called lobsterbacks. So you took some information that you already knew about the British soldiers and added new information to it about being called lobsterbacks. Thank you for sharing. Shay, would you like to talk about what happened with us when we were reading today?
Well, I picked up this book because I thought it would be interesting, and it's about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. I knew a little bit about Thomas Jefferson, but not John Adams, and I learned a little bit about John Adams, that he stayed in Boston when he worked, and then Thomas Jefferson, he sent his tobacco downriver to the market, but he could only sell it to England, whatever the price was.
So Shay and I were like, okay, we think we might have heard before that Thomas Jefferson grew tobacco, but it was new information to us that he sent it down the river to be sold in England, and that's the only place we could sell it. So we took what we already knew about Thomas Jefferson, and we added to it, Madden, some new information about Thomas Jefferson, and we synthesized that information. Carly, do you want to talk about what happened with us today? Carly synthesized, we both did, because it took us a long time to come to meaning about what was going on with this book. But it was with literary text instead of informational text. So what did you already know?
I already knew that the father and Peter left the pet fox and they left it in the woods and they drove away, and that.
And then we got confused. And Carly said, hey, will you come over and read with me and help me figure out what's going on in this book because I can't figure it out. Because the father, the chapter before, had just taken the little boy to set the fox loose. And then we had to read and read and read until we figured out what new information. What? Tell him.
That the father was in war.
That the father had gone to war. And we couldn't figure out they were talking about the dad like he had died, and they were looking at pictures of him, and we couldn't figure out, so we just had to keep reading and reading and reading, and with literary text, we had to take what we knew about this dad, add this new information, put it together, and come away with a new understanding that the dad had gone to war. Took us a while to figure it out, though, and I'm glad that we did, that we stuck with it and had the stamina to keep going and figure it out, because I think it's going to turn out to be a really good book. Don't you think? Okay. All right, Noah, what would you like to talk about? Before you start, I need for the people around you to be sitting up and attending to the people who are talking in the classroom, please.
Well, first I have some information to add on to Kaylin's book.
Okay.
I know also that the redcoats were also called bloody backs to annoy them, because they were bright red. They would call them bloody backs.
Okay, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened in a long time for me in my teaching life. So we have this information about redbacks. We learned lobsterbacks.
Those redcoats.
Redcoats, thank you. Then we heard lobsterbacks, and because you were listening to the information, you just now gave us new information we could synthesize. So we got it from talking, listening, and reading. So now we even have bloody backs because of their red coats. Very interesting.
And I learned that polyaluminum was used in MRI machines and makes a magnetic field stronger.
Can I say something? I want to talk to you and everyone else about something. Before Noah came back down to the floor, he said he wanted to share this information, and I said, did you synthesize when you read it? And you said no. And I'm going to tell you that you did. And here's how. Because you've been reading this book about elements. You know that Noah's been reading this very sophisticated book about elements, and he's been sharing with us some things about elements. So he's building this knowledge base about elements. Well, you just learned about the new element called halonym, and he's adding that information to what he already knows about the elements. So he's synthesizing that information to what he already knows and coming away a smarter person. Synthesizing really is a pretty natural thing that we do in the world. We have things that we already know about, and we learn some new things about it, and we bring those things together and become smarter people. And when we read informational text, it's especially important for us to do that as researchers. As we move on in this study, we're going to continue to synthesize, and we're going to continue to add to what we already know about the Revolutionary War so that we can write interesting research topics about the Revolutionary War. Okay? All right, Mr. Bates is going to tell you what he would like for you to do next.
We're going to move on back to our desks, take out our social studies.
Thank you, because I took a long time.
No, it's